Care what the calendar says. It's March. At this point next week, we're going to be talking postseason hoops. Final week of the regular season for the power conferences. It's been insane. There's so much at stake. Basically, every conference race is going down to the wire tomorrow or Sunday. We got two winner gets the one seed. We may have a coin flip in the SEC. Let's roll. Latest Gauer Hour. Rob Joyce, Megan Gauer. Megan, you and I are not journalists. We are not insiders. We just usually watch more college basketball than your average fan. I like to think we largely know what we're talking about most of the time. What's happening in the next 6 weeks? Because I got nothing.
Yeah, it's if last night proved anything, there's a lot of parity and it is a wide open field, and I think it's going to be really, really exciting.
Like November, December, January, really up until like 2 weeks ago. It's all right. UCLA, South Carolina, better than everyone else. There's like Notre Dame, there's USC, there's LSU, there's UConn. There's like the second tier. Now, just throw it all up in the air. That's what the committee does, I'm sure, because for the second straight bracket reveal, they reveal it, and then within 2 hours, it's irrelevant.
Yeah. I thought with last night's slate, we might get a field that was mostly relevant to talk about today, and no.
No, a lot to get to, as always. It was a loaded Thursday, more loaded than normal. A bunch to get to from midweek. Last night, obviously insane. There were so many games we could talk about. We'll talk NC State's double overtime thriller on Sunday over Notre Dame, too. Irish have lost back-to-back. We'll get you set for everything to come this weekend. We'll wrap up the show by talking a little bit about the GOAT. She retired, but Megan, your world. Actually, you know what? No, let's bracket reveal, because the bracket reveal from last night is largely not irrelevant, but it's different already.
Yeah, it is different.
Let's start in the ACC. Irish. Second straight loss. Sunday, crazy environment in Raleigh, double overtime. What do you make of last night at home to Florida State when they were up 15 early?
Yeah, last night was surprising to me. I didn't really think much of a double overtime win against loss on the road against top 10 team in NC State. Like, I didn't even bat an eye at that result for Notre Dame. But I think last night was surprising to me in that, I don't know, it just felt like even though they got up early and you kind of thought the game was they would just run away with it, Florida State came back, and they came back not on the back of Taniya Watson to start, which I thought was the most intriguing part of that. And then Letson did go off in the second half to get the win, but it was just a shocking loss, I thought, for the Irish at home. It just never felt like in that second half that they were gonna come back.
No, let me take you behind the scenes. It's 9:03 Eastern on Friday. So I had to work last night. I had a basketball game. 9 o'clock on Peacock with two East Coast teams. Don't even get me started. Michigan won on a buzzer beater. Yay, go blue. So I'm watching 3 games. Got 2 on my laptop, 1 on the TV while I'm sitting there waiting to work. I saw Florida State's or Notre Dame's up 15. I'm like, great, I don't have to watch that game. Multiple games going on. The 7 o'clock games finish up, or the 6 o'clock, whatever. The Duke UNC game finished up, and then the graphic flashes on the screen. Like, what do you mean Florida State's winning at the half? What the hell happened? So, of course, I watched the second half. I'm not as panicked as I would be, because I'm looking at some of these other teams in this top tier, and I'm asking, who can just straight up outscore Notre Dame? Like, NC State and Florida State are better offensively, I feel, right now than like a team they might face in the Final Four.
Yeah.
So, I'm not trying to panic, but, Hannah Hidalgo in the first slump of the year, they're still scoring a lot of points. I just don't know what happened to the defense, or maybe it's just they're playing 2 really good offenses.
Yeah, and maybe that's all it is, that you did get kind of similar types of teams, so that could be it. This is not the type of year you want to lose back-to-back games. Right? No. You want to be playing your best basketball. I would have expected them to respond to the loss, which I said I saw nothing of the loss to NC State, but to respond to that loss back at home last night, and that's just not what happened.
This is not the first time I will say this week. I have a gift. I was out on Florida State, 2 weeks ago? After trying to convince everyone that yeah, they might be good. And then I'm like, all right, I'm out. Heck with it. Don't let me. I was out on Washington. We'll get to that.
Yeah.
Well, I was out on Nebraska last. If I'm out on a team, just throw your money at them. It's fine. Yeah. So they play Duke on Sunday. We can kind of talk about the top 16, but I saw some people saying Florida State, if they win Sunday, like a frisky top 16. I still don't see it.
I don't see that. I
Okay.
don't see that. Yeah, I think they're too far off for that to happen. And like I think this top 16, like no one fell out in the last week. Someone probably will fall out, I think, like before Selection Sunday, but like it's not like there's like 4 spots up for grabs.
I will say they beat Georgia Tech. One of their games recently, they didn't have Latson. It was the Georgia Tech game.
Mhm.
They went to Georgia Tech on Sunday and won anyways. Like they have so many options offensively. Yeah. Michaela Timpson, Sydney Bowles went off on Sunday. Obviously, Latson does what she does. I think they're the only team in the country they've had like 3 or 4 different 30-point scores. We say it all the time about Florida State. We know they have this offensive capability. I feel like it's starting to come together. I'm getting on the bandwagon again. I mean, I think everyone's getting on the bandwagon now, right?
Yeah. You beat a top 5 team in the country, or number 2 team in the country, or whatever they were
at their place.
Yeah, at their place. Everyone's gonna be on the bandwagon.
What do you make? We're talking about Notre Dame. So Sunday, NC State. What were your takeaways from that game? I had a lot of takeaways that a lot of them had very little to do with the game, actually.
Yeah, for me, I felt like I had more takeaways from the NC State perspective. I think, like I said, for Notre Dame, right? Like it's a top 10 game on the road, tough environment. You lose in double overtime, whatever. But I thought NC State, I think I was impressed the fact that they were, we haven't really seen an ACC team really be in it in any of these games against the Irish. So to not only be in it but then to win it in double overtime, I was really impressed with their performance.
Obviously, Isaiah James, she's the star. Zoe Brooks is playing really, really well. She had 33. Sanai Rivers didn't shoot the ball well. She defends well. She rebounds. She distributes. And then the emergence of Tilda Triger down low, that's the reason that Wolfpack have gone from kind of afterthought early in the year to now like a top 10 team. She was great against Notre Dame. It just adds such a different dimension when they just have that presence down low. I have thoughts about foul the 3-point shooter up 3. I know they got away with it. They won the game. Congratulations. They had multiple chances to put it away in regulation. I don't get it.
Yeah.
I don't get it. Like, it's one thing, you don't want to foul while they're shooting. Like, on the inbound, so her back she's at midcourt with her back to the basket. Just foul her. And there's 2 seconds left, and they have to inbound it again. And then you can foul again when there's 1 second. And NC State almost made a Final Four because of that. Because UConn didn't foul against them in the Elite Eight. You thought, we could have learned about that. No, they got away with it. Also, my other takeaway, when I become the czar of college basketball, which, any day now, you get 2 timeouts in the 4th quarter. That's it. You get 3 for the game. Use it or lose it, you get 2. There's too many stoppages late in the games.
Yeah. I think there's a lot of games last night that felt like that.
Yeah, because coaches just stockpile their timeout for the last 2 minutes so they can advance the ball. And no, you have practice. You have all the practice time in the world. You have prep. You have film. You have media timeouts. You have halftime. Let your players play.
Yeah.
And coaches are going to use the timeouts. Fine. Then the NCAA has to make the players play. When I'm czar, you get 2. And if you can't figure it out after that, that's not my problem.
Yeah.
Coach Bender. Great game, though. Even though the last 10 minutes or the last 30 seconds of regulation took 10 minutes.
Yes.
Very entertaining game.
Great
Anyways,
game.
that was Thursday. So Notre Dame, they were the 4 seed. Number 4 overall seed. They stayed there. USC leapfrogged them. We can talk about USC in a second. Does Notre Dame fall to a 2 seed? And if so, who do you replace them with?
Yeah, I think they do after this. I think because it wasn't, I thought the committee overreacted to the NC State loss, in my opinion. Like, I didn't think USC should have leapfrogged them for that. You lost to a top 10 team on the road. I think they do drop from this loss. I think when you lose to a team, especially a team outside of that top 16 right now, it's going to hurt you. And also losing back-to-back games at this time of the season is going to hurt you. There's just always somewhat of a recency bias to these things. So I do think they drop. For now, I think it's South Carolina that leapfrogs them. I think they move back up to the 1 seed.
I think with Notre Dame, if you're looking at the whole resume, Notre Dame now has 4 losses, and they have the worst of the losses of anyone. Like UCLA, 1 loss at USC. Texas lost at South Carolina. And what was their second loss?
Whatever.
Notre Dame. Notre Dame. Oh, yes, Notre Dame.
Notre Dame also has the 3 best wins. That's what
On the
makes
road.
them so
Sure.
tricky.
Sure. But the loss to Utah on a neutral,
Yeah.
loss to Florida State, which again is a ranked loss, but
Mhm.
you're picking nits here when you're talking about the number 1 overall seed, and they probably have better wins. You're right. They do have worse losses. We'll stay in the ACC. Duke, North Carolina. Very much not the first game, which made me a little bit sad. I'm accustomed to a certain standard of Duke, North Carolina, and they blew that out of the water. Welcome back, Reagan Richardson.
Yes, that
Now,
was my biggest takeaway too.
if she can keep this up, now you talk about Duke in a different light.
Yeah, I think we've been talking about like where did the Duke offense go, and particularly that has stemmed from like Reagan Richardson just largely being a non-factor for them in a lot of these recent games, and that certainly was not the case last night. And I thought that was the difference maker in what was ultimately not really a close game, like 68-53, like especially in Duke, North Carolina world. That's quite a big margin. And 23 from Reagan Richardson, 60% from the floor. Like that's what Duke needs from her every night if they're going to make a run in March.
Yeah, North Carolina was, shorthanded, so I don't take too much stock into it. And it was close for 2 3/4 of a quarter. Duke went on a big run late in the third, and that was that. No Alyssa Usby, no Renee Kelly. That's just a lot for North Carolina, who's already offensively challenged. I think Lainey Grant has been a nice find the last couple of games in the lineup. She got her first start. She had 19 against Louisville in that win. I think she had 14 or 16 last night. Any offense that North Carolina can find, additionally, then once they get healthy, actually was kind of feel better about North Carolina if they can get everyone back, because they need as much offensive help as they can get. When we're talking, can they get to the Elite Eight or the Final Four?
Yeah, that's true. If you keep getting, 10 points from Lainey Grant when you have Utsby and you have Renee Kelly on the floor, that's a big difference.
Yes. Not a whole lot of difference. We talked last week about being a 2 versus a 3. If someone's going to, I guess no one's really going to make that jump. Our top 8 seeds basically set.
Yeah, I think so. I would be surprised, barring someone like a LSU or a NC State losing to someone they really shouldn't in their conference tournaments or this weekend. I think that they're set.
Fair enough. We will wrap our ACC chat very quickly. Virginia Tech, don't lose to Boston College in overtime.
Yeah, that's not a great loss when you're on the bubble. Not a good loss on the bubble.
Now, bracketology, what's our update?
Tomorrow.
Okay. I feel like there's a big gap between, Virginia Tech's got to be the last team in the field, or Washington, last team in the field. There's got to be a gap between that and Princeton, who's first team out.
Yeah, probably
Arizona.
Princeton. Yeah.
So
it still feels like they're probably okay. I think where the risk comes in is, does the South Dakota State lose in the conference championship? Just even a Fairfield, their numbers are up there. Could they sneak in? I don't know. I want them to. I don't know if they lose, but I don't know if it would. There's some teams that are sneaky, in the net range where they could sneak in.
Columbia, let's go down the list here. Harvard's 34. They're bubble-ish. Richmond, 32. Again, if they lose, bubble-ish.
I think Richmond's in regardless.
Okay. South Dakota State is 44. UNLV, 45. Mason, 46. Virginia Tech, 47. Fairfield, 48. Princeton, 49. So Virginia Tech, they have a quad 1 win. Most of these other teams don't. That's a big help. They do not have... Do they have any quad? They have a quad 3 and a quad 4 loss. Well, so do some of these other teams. So, don't make the committee decide by going and losing to Boston College. Yeah. That's the moral of this story, and that's what they've done. I just did something to my screen, and I can't figure out what I did. Give me a second. Okay, we're back. We're back and ready to another. This new Windows, brutally bad. That's our ACC talk. SEC, where do you want to start? There were a lot of results. Kentucky, Texas, Alabama, wherever you want to go.
Well, let's start with Alabama because they finally got a big win last night.
I didn't think they had it in them. When LSU went on this run in the fourth quarter, sitting there thinking, well, LSU knows how to win this game. Alabama has no idea how to win this game.
Yeah.
And they won the game.
Yeah, I was really impressed with the fact that they were able to pull it out because, the end of that game was chaotic to say the least, but you already have Aaliyah Nye on the bench out with 5 fouls. Then there was that crazy play at the end where they called the foul on Flau'jae Johnson. She fouls out. Sarah Ashley Barker hit her in the face with the basketball move, whatever. We don't have to talk about the call on that play. So they review it. They call it an intentional. She falls out. And it's like, I think at that time, Alabama is up 2, but then, LSU
Right.
gets
Then
to
LSU got a
shoot.
free throw. They made one. Then, yeah.
They get the ball because it was an intentional, and I was just like, I feel like this. There are 2 players you can count on to make a play sitting on the bench, and they figured it out. They got the stop that they needed. They got the ball in bounds, and they won the game.
So we know Kim Mulkey. We got some great Kim Mulkey names this week. I'm sure you saw the reaction from Sunday, Kentucky, where they just the pan in. Primo A+ work. Christy Curry on the other side. Christy Curry's great to talk to. Talk to her every other year at the SEC tournament. She's like the nicest person in the world. Watching her just melt down at referees, knowing how nice she is off the floor, it's like it's a different person. It's great. I love it. Love everything about it. Hope I get to talk to her next week because it's just she's great to talk to. What does this do? Like Alabama plays Oklahoma Sunday, and suddenly they're sitting there still with 6 losses after picking up a marquee win. They probably need some help, which beating Oklahoma would constitute as help.
Yeah.
Tide hosting?
Yeah, I think the Florida State one to me is a long shot, but this one I think is a real possibility. I think you got to beat Oklahoma because the spot has to open, and that's one way that could happen. I think if they beat Oklahoma and then win a game or 2 in the SEC tournament, that they will host.
I wish the committee would say, which at that point, I wish the committee would kind of say who were like the next 2 or 3 teams, next 4 teams out. Which at that point you're going to ask, all right, then who are the 6 seeds, who are the 7 seeds? But
right.
But I just kind of want to know. Like I thought Baylor.
Baylor is the other
Baylor
team I think is right there. Yeah. If we're talking about teams that are right there, in my opinion, it's probably Bama after last night and Baylor.
Yeah, but maybe the committee's sitting there thinking West Virginia's 17 or some other team is 17.
Sometimes they put things on the screen that are baffling to me. So yes.
Right. Right. So I don't know. So I think Alabama's really close. They need a win on Sunday. We know that. But finally, first top 10 win since 2014. They've had lots of chances. I think this would do a lot for their confidence at a good time of year.
Yeah.
And they're threatening for a double bye now in the SEC tournament, along with Kentucky. I'm happily wrong about Kentucky.
Yeah.
They're really good. And they're starting to get just enough production from the bench that, like, that concern, it's still a concern, but not nearly as much. If Clara Silva comes out and puts up like a near double-double against LSU, I know they lost, and then comes out and grabs a bunch of rebounds last night. Like, it's a game changer if they get any production.
Yeah. No, as much as, like, yes, they lost to LSU, I was impressed with the way they played in that game. I didn't think it would be particularly close. It was a down to the wire game. And then last night, just a wire-to-wire win over Tennessee, which I was not expecting at all.
No, Tennessee started 3 of 21 and just never, ever got going. So Tennessee, they moved up to a 3 seed. They're the only team to move up from a 4 to a 3.
I think that was just the committee realizing maybe they were wrong on the last one. I don't really know what happened for them to move all the way up.
Sure, but now they have, is this updated yet? No, they have 7 losses. If they lose the SEC tournament, they would have 8 losses.
Yeah.
Are they at risk with if you have 8 losses, no matter how many close ones you have, 8's a big number. 20 something is a big number as one of those 8 losses. I don't know what the final margin was.
Yeah.
A lot. Non-competitive. It was 24.
Yeah. I think that hurt them because I think what's helped Tennessee is like their losses have been mostly to other top 16 teams and by very close margins. So it's like, okay, yes, they are like a part of this top group by the eye test. And then last night result doesn't really support that. So I think that loss hurts more. And then if you talk about if they add another loss, obviously if they won the SEC tournament, like, yeah, they're going to be hosting. Yeah. But if they add another loss to that, I think that's going to be tough, especially depends how that loss looks. I think like if you lose by 1 point to South Carolina, maybe it doesn't really hurt you. But if it's not something other than that, I think it could. I do think they're at risk right now. especially because we see the committee make like I think bigger movements based on what happens in conference tournaments. So if someone like Baylor, for instance, go out makes it to the Big 12 final, like that might be enough to put them in over Tennessee.
SEC tournament's going to be wild. I know I
Oh,
have
yeah.
bias here because I'll be in Greenville calling games next weekend, but it's just going to be really, really fun. By the way, LSU, we talked LSU, Bama. LSU came back to beat Kentucky. It's about time someone got LSU when they decided to wait 15 minutes to play basketball.
Yeah, I feel like I've every week have been saying like this is gonna happen eventually, and it like never happens somehow. And last night it finally happened. Like you have to play 40 minutes of basketball against these teams to win the basketball game.
Most of the time, apparently.
Most of the time, yeah.
Yeah, because they didn't really. They were down 12 at halftime on
Yeah.
Sunday to Kentucky. Had a monster third quarter. They were down double digits in the fourth quarter last night. Came all the way back. Yes, both of those games were on the road. We've seen them do it at home. We saw them do it to Stanford. We saw them do it to Murray State and UIC and some of these just random teams. Like it's not like a venue thing.
Yeah.
I feel like it's just a team thing. Like can you trust that?
I don't know. Like
I
it
don't
feels like I must feel like this is a team that could for sure go to the Final Four. It also to me is like a team that like do you lose in the second round because you do something like that, and the team that you're playing just starts to make like keeps making shots, and that's it.
Yeah. Teams making shots. How about Texas? Forget shooting threes. Texas regularly now goes halves shooting with a shooting percentage that starts with a number 2. Like, forget can you win a national championship shooting without shooting threes? Can you do that by shooting 28% all the time? I feel like Texas is trying to put that theory to test. But they keep winning.
Yeah, that was the other. I feel like there were so many results or like close calls in the SEC last night that were just eyebrow raising, and that was another one of them. Like, I did not expect Texas Mississippi State to be a game that went down to the wire, but here we are.
It helps that Texas made 7 threes. Now, one of them was a half-court heave from Harmon to end the third, give them a lead they wouldn't relinquish. But Shea Holly, there might be no more important X factor. Like Sonia Citron has played well enough, and she's had enough publicity where like she's not an X factor anymore.
Right.
She's a known commodity. Everyone talks about Harmon and Booker, and probably Taylor Jones is third on that list.
Right.
Shea Holly can come out and just need to make 4 threes. She can make 2 or 3 and take over a game like she did in the fourth quarter. Now we're talking with Texas, and now I don't know how they get beat, even after I almost watched them get beat, despite the fact that Mississippi State's best player was 4 for 11 and didn't have a field goal in the first half in Ja'Kayla Jordan.
Yeah. I still think, I don't know, maybe they can get beat, but I think if this team is making threes, they are a lot harder to beat because then they have different ways to beat you. And I think we've seen that Texas can beat you one way so far, and that seems to work against almost every team. So maybe that's good enough. But I think that added factor of, like you said, it doesn't have to be 7 threes, but 2, 3, 4 game, like that's just going to be, especially at the right moments, it's going to be huge for them.
We'll say they need to get Madison Booker going again. Since that win over South Carolina, where she was only 7 of 22, played well against Kentucky, 9 of 18, 3 of 17 LSU, 3 of 11 Georgia. That Georgia game was disgusting. I don't remember the halftime score. They ran away. They won by like 31. At halftime, it was like, pull it up. It was 20-16. Gross.
Disgusting.
Gross. And then she was 5 of 13 last night. So Booker has to get going again. She didn't play well against South Carolina the first time. Harmon, her magic isn't with scoring. So if you're not going to get some secondary scoring from a Holly, or even like Taylor Jones only had 4 points last night. Menentanda played pretty well. But like if Booker's not scoring, that's just makes it so much harder for Texas, I feel.
Yeah, I agree. I think they rely on her offense so much, and trying to force that from other places on the floor is going to be tough, and it's not something we've seen Texas necessarily do consistently. Like I said, Shea Holly had a great night last night. It doesn't happen every night, and I think this team needs Madison Booker to be really good every night, and then the pieces around her having bigger nights is what's gonna make them really good. But I think they need that consistency from her.
Quickly, the only other result from Thursday wasn't much of a game. UConn over Creighton. It was a top 25 game. I don't think it's a quad 1 win for the Huskies. Creighton it's a quad 2 win for the Huskies. 1 seed?
Possible. possible. If South Carolina loses again, it is suddenly possible, which to me is like wild because after that Tennessee game, I would have told you there was no world where UConn could be like a 1 seed in Birmingham, and here we are.
Here we are. Fair enough. Wednesday. Are you surprised Ohio State is still 16?
I didn't think they would fall out after because I think they only had one loss. So no. I actually was more surprised that they didn't drop Kansas State out from the back-to-back losses, but I think that's just maybe a knowing Ayoka Lee is supposed to come back thing.
Let's talk K-State then. We'll get to Ohio State, Michigan State on Wednesday. Monday. So K-State, Baylor. K-State's game plan versus Sedona Prince was great. They double-teamed her every time she touched the ball. They didn't do that to Aaronette Vonleh, and she roasted them in the first quarter. They just playing catch-up the whole game. Couldn't do it, even against a short-handed Lady Bears team. I am worried about K-State. Lee played 5 minutes Saturday against Kansas. Didn't play Monday. Minor foot procedure. Supposedly back for the NCAA tournament.
Yeah,
I've heard this story before.
Yeah.
And maybe she is. And maybe she comes back and she's fine. Big people and foot problems. A lot of red flags going off.
Yeah, and I think the timeline now too is right. Like, if she's supposed to be back for that NCAA tournament, like, how many times have we seen a team say that and their players not actually back for the NCAA tournament? They're trying.
Olivia Miles was questionable 2 years ago for the NCAA tournament. So
yeah.
No, I'm not saying it's that severe of an injury,
right?
But like, oh, Lee will be back in a couple of weeks. Oh, she's going to play Saturday. Oh, she only played 5 minutes. She didn't play, in this top 15 game on Monday. Oh, she had a minor procedure. Most procedures aren't that minor.
Yeah. Usually when it involves procedure, surgery, generally the timeline of those things is more than 1 to 2 weeks.
When she came back last year, it was the end of the regular season. So she had a couple of, couple of games of buffer before the postseason. Because the thing about Baylor or the K-State, they won the TCU game, which is a great win without her. They can't score without her.
Yeah.
At least against like the elite teams. 50 against TCU, 55 against Oklahoma State, 57 West Virginia, now 62 Baylor, and 5 of those points were in garbage time.
Yeah, now you're looking at a team that's a 4 seed. If they lose again, maybe a 5 seed. Like, your second game is playing a 4 or 5 seed type team. Like, there's just not a lot of window for error there. Like, yeah, maybe, even your first game, like, some of the 12-13 teams are good teams. Like, if you
run
get
into
the
Florida
wrong
Gulf Coast every year, they almost win the 12-13 or 12-5 game.
Yeah, like, you get the wrong draw there, that could be a really tough game too. So I do think, with her just like only coming back for the tournament, that's tough too. Your first game back is a big game.
Yeah, and the committee is, you're not supposed to use past history, so they don't. And Florida Gulf Coast is always a 12 seed, and South Dakota State will probably be a 12 seed, and like all these teams.
I think South Dakota State will be like a 9 or 10. I think they've proven.
Until I see it, I'm not I won't believe it. And they're gonna run into someone, and it's like, oh, they're good. So yeah, I'm very worried about K-State with not even the loss, just the fact that Lee is allegedly going to be back for the tournament, and we'll see. Who do they got? That's not the story in the Big 12 this weekend.
Yeah, no.
One more loss. Maybe if they make it to the Big 12 championship game, they're fine. But like, I feel like they're treading on thin ice here.
Yeah, I agree. I think they're definitely at risk.
They're the number 15 overall team right now. 16 is Ohio State. Nice win over Michigan State. I feel like the Buckeyes are more matchup based than anyone. If they run into size, they're toast.
Right.
If they don't run into size and they play a team like a Michigan State, like, oh, great, you just want to pressure us for 40 minutes? Like, great, we got this. We're good. It's just big people problem.
Yeah. I think this is a team that when we get the bracket on Selection Sunday, like how far you think they may go is going to be so dependent on who's on that path for them. And like, could they be an Elite 8 team? Sure. Could they be not a second weekend team? Also sure. Like, I think it's a matter of how the cards fall for them. And same thing as we get to the Big Ten tournament too. Like, what type of matchups do you have to play? I do think this is a team that's very much at the risk of falling out of this top 16 though. Like, if anyone's spot is up for grabs, I think we talked about Kansas State, we talked about Tennessee. I think this is the other one because assuming you've got another loss in you, like if it's not to a USC or UCLA in the Big Ten tournament, I don't think that spot is gone.
Yeah, realistically, so Kentucky was the 14. Well, they're safe.
Yeah.
They just beat Tennessee by 30 points or 25
Right.
points, whatever it is. We mentioned Tennessee's don't mess around, and they're
Mhm.
probably safe. So that leaves Oklahoma, who can basically wrap it up if they beat Alabama.
Yeah.
And that leaves 2 spots if Oklahoma wins Sunday. So that's it. 2 spots, which in fairness, we were talking a month ago of like, we feel like there was like 12 teams for 6 spots. So I feel like there's been a lot more parity at the top of teams who I think can win a national title. I feel like the window of teams who can host has kind of balanced itself out.
Yeah, it's gotten smaller for sure.
Yeah, but if you're Ohio State, like right now, they're in a region with TCU and Texas. Trouble.
That's not
No bueno. No bueno. But if they slide into a region with, I'm looking at, UNC and LSU and like USC's the 1 seed. Okay, now we're talking here. Just avoid size at all costs. The other result from Wednesday, put Washington in the field. Fine. Do it. I don't care if they lose 15 games. I mean, you go to Lincoln and just kick the crap out of the Huskers.
Yeah.
And then you go to Minnesota and you beat the Gophers by 10. Yeah, I mean, credit. Kudos to them. They've lost a bunch of games, but boy, they're playing well at the right time.
Yeah, I think this is one where the eye test is going to do them a lot of favors because you're showing that you can compete and win against teams that are in the field. And I do think like it is a lot of losses. I think we'll kind of see how the committee treats that this year because I think there is a difference this year. Like 12 losses last year is different than 12 losses this year with these new conferences. So I do think there's an element of that to it. But I think they probably get in. It's also just a weak bubble in general, so that works in their favor.
And some of these recent losses, they've won 3 in a row after losing 3 in a row and losing 6 of 7. Their last handful of losses, USC by 5. We're up double digits in the third quarter. By 1 at Oregon. By 8 against Maryland. By 10 at Ohio State. By 3 to Iowa. Did get blown out by Indiana. Then got blown out by Iowa. Their last 5 losses, they're plays away from turning a couple of those into wins.
Yeah. I think this is a place where the eye test is going to play a big role.
I mean, Ella Dean's been amazing. 3 straight games of 25 or more points. She was 10 of 13 on Wednesday. Delia Daniels, back-to-back double-doubles. So, yeah, I've hated on them for the better part of a month. I will say after I told you in like December, like Washington isn't bad.
Yeah.
And then I turned the corner. So, yeah, I mean, they're in Nebraska this year.
Yeah, they do themselves a favor by winning a game or 2 in the Big Ten tournament because I think they are still extremely bubbly. And we just talked about that group of teams that, like, if they lose their conference tournament, maybe they could sneak into the field. So,
the game we didn't talk about last week, Princeton lost to Columbia. If Princeton would have won that game, I think we had to have a more of a discussion. But who's in that list? South Florida was a win over Duke. St. Joe's, bad loss to Mason. No, they beat the crap out of Mason. So Mason's out. So St. Joe's is still alive. Arizona.
St. Joe's lost to like URI and
yeah.
So like they shot themselves in the foot.
So yeah, so winning a couple of games would, help you in the case of bid stealers. But again, I think if there's, and things very rarely run chalk. If things go chalk, let's just throw out a bracket right now.
Yeah. If things go chalk, I agree. But I think there's like the A10, if Mason or St. Joe's or quite frankly anyone other than Richmond wins that tournament. I think they're a 2-bid league. I think the Ivy is a 2-bid league. Like a South Dakota State is an at-large team. And then you've got like a UNLV, a Fairfield. Those are teams that could be at-large teams.
We'll have to wait and see.
Yeah.
Another team that I was very high on all year and then I gave up on, and I should have just held my stock, Iowa. Beat the heck out of Michigan on Wednesday. What did you make of Sunday against UCLA? Probably an illegal screen. If you're asking Iowa fans, you get 1 illegal screen call. Where do you want it? You'll take the Final Four. But yeah, if you're not going to call the screen, then probably a hard luck foul, but yeah, I thought it was an illegal screen. But what do you make of Iowa? Had UCLA on the ropes. didn't win, controversial, whatever. We don't need to talk about referees.
Yeah.
We know referees are referees. I was starting to find it again after a mid-season wobble.
Yeah, they had that USC win, a couple weeks ago, and now, the other top team in the Big Ten, you get them on the ropes too. I've been impressed with what Iowa was able to do. I'm interested to see if they can make a run in the Big Ten tournament. It feels like this is a team that's playing their best basketball. Lucy Olson has been much, much better than she was. I think this is a team that could. I don't know that they're not going to win the Big Ten tournament. I mean, they could. You never know, but could make a pretty deep run in the Big Ten tournament.
Yeah, if you have to beat UCLA and USC, probably not. But if there's an upset somewhere and you only got to get one of them, then why not? And we talked last week. Could Hannah Stolke surprise us? Sydney Falter surprised the heck out of me. She was great against UCLA. She had 20 and 11 or something like that against Michigan. All right. Iowa basketball. If you listen to me in November, you're like, yeah, of course. If you listen to me in January, you're like, well, Rob, you're an idiot. So Iowa, they're probably not a top. Well, they might be in the top 25 now. Rankings don't matter, but they're not going to host, which is a shame for them.
Another reason I would like to see Alabama get in, because that gym was packed last night. That was a great crowd.
I went on my soapbox last week about attendance. You see why. UCLA goes into Carver Hawkeye, where they play on a neutral floor, and UCLA wins by 10, 9 out of 10 times, 8 out of 10 times. Not at Carver Hawkeye, because that place is a cauldron. You walk into Indiana, that place is hard to win. You go into a packed Alabama, that place is hard to win. When you show up and make it a difficult environment, NC State, I have lots of conflicting thoughts on NC State women's basketball playing at Reynolds while the men play at Lenovo. You can't deny it's a hell of a place to go in and play.
Yeah.
Where there's 5,500 people and it's a low ceiling and it's just deafening. Deafening. Where, if you go into other places and there's 1,500 people, it's like, what are we doing? What are we doing? Any other takeaways? What do you take? West Virginia, their hosting chance is done. They got routed by TCU. They were never in it.
Yeah. They're done.
Even after blowing out Utah on Wednesday?
Yeah, they're still done.
Hosting matters a lot for them. Undefeated at home, 6-6, not at home. So
that's tough.
Yes.
So they haven't picked up the wins to justify it. I think they have too many losses and not the wins to balance them.
They are still 12 in the net, and they have now 3 quad 1 wins. But if you're looking at some of these other teams, Kansas only has 2. Yeah, if you're looking at some of these other teams who are in line, like Oklahoma has 6. Even if they pick up another loss, that's 3 is a lot more than 6.
Yeah.
Baylor. Okay, so that's fair. No other results from the week. Coaching carousel's underway. Robin Pinchton's not returning to Miami. I'm not a coaching carousel person, but here's a question for you. Do you know who has the longest win streak in the country? Because this coach is on every list that I've seen about, at least Missouri, and I'm sure she'll be on every other one. There's a spoiler. It's a her.
I'm trying to think who would have been the team. There has to be probably some mid-major team that lost in. Is it the South Dakota State head coach?
No, Grand Canyon has won 23 in a row.
Yep.
Molly Miller all over any coaching search listicle. Montana State, Florida Gulf Coast, Green Bay, Southeast Louisiana, and JMU have all won 18 straight. So those are your longest active win streaks. Molly Miller's been on every list I've seen for Missouri. She's going to be on every list because she's a young coach who wins a lot.
Yeah.
At the lower level, so that's the top of the list. I also saw Kelly Harper. Thought that'd be interesting for Missouri. Anyways, previewing what's at stake. We'll go conference by conference because basically there's no conference outside of the Big East at the power level that is not sewn up, which surprises me for the ACC. But anyways, tomorrow, round 2, UCLA, USC. Winner wins the Big Ten. They both have one conference loss, so the fact that they would split if UCLA were to win doesn't matter. Better record, UCLA would get the 1 seed. What's your make of UCLA, USC at Pauley?
I'm interested to see how this one goes. I feel like I'm a little worried about UCLA, just in that, not the USC loss didn't worry me, but then now the close game at Iowa, it just feels like they haven't looked as dominant as they did the first kind of half of the season lately. So I'm interested to see if they can kind of respond to that and kind of put that narrative to bed a little bit in this game.
Whatever funk this offense has been in, it needs to change quickly. They scored 91 against Wisconsin. Skippy, good job. Yay. Since February 5th, so that's 7 games now. That's just their second time where they hit 75. On the nose, they hit 75 against Michigan State. Just their third time reaching 70. Are you comfortable in the Sweet 16 going up against a Tennessee or an Oklahoma with a game that is played in the 60s? Here, better question. Top 2 seed lines. We said they're pretty much set. Who do you feel best about right now? Not like the whole season, like right now on February 28th. Because I don't have an answer.
Maybe Texas, but yeah, I don't have a great answer either. You could tell me that any of those teams wins it all, and you could also tell me that any of those teams loses in the second round, and I would believe you.
Second round for me might be a little extreme, but like not even make the Elite 8, I could believe. Get challenged in the Sweet 16. Like you just said, Texas. They've had 3 halves of basketball in the month where they shot 20-something%. Now they won the game. Like UCLA, I still think UCLA is the best team in the country. I don't feel great about it. But they just have.
I don't know. I just think even like the second round games are going to be tough. Like you're thinking about like UCLA Iowa, like that could be a second round game.
Sure, that caliber,
Not that specific game, but like that caliber.
The answer, I feel like the answer might be USC.
Yeah, I could see that argument too. Like I think they're playing well right now.
The thing with USC, which was my point for tomorrow, UCLA just can't let Juju single-handedly win the game.
Right.
Like it wasn't some team explosion at Galen. Juju had 38, had 6 threes, 11 rebounds, 8 blocks, and 5 assists. Everyone else they contained. Kiki didn't do anything. She was 4 of 14. No one else scored more than 7 points. If you just, easier said than done, stop the most talented player in the country and she doesn't play like it, I feel like UCLA will win. The question is, I don't know if they can.
Yeah. I don't even think you have to stop her. You can't let her have that kind of night, right? Like
let her have 38 with 2 assists and 2 blocks and instead of 6 of 9 from 3, she's 2 of 9 from 3 and she just gets to the line a bunch. Like there's ways to go around it.
Right. Yeah. I think you don't have to stop her and you're not going to stop her, right? Like you're just going to get hers, but you've got to slow her down in some way, shape, or form in some area on the court.
And that's USC's weakness, where if Juju isn't, she didn't have one of the 10 greatest individual performances I've ever seen from a guard, can they beat UCLA?
Yeah.
I'm sure I'm going to go out on a limb and say she's not going to have one of the 10 greatest performances I've ever seen from a guard again. So we'll see on Saturday. Now, if she plays 15% worse, but Kennedy Smith is better than 1 for 8 and Kiki Iriafen is better than 4 of 14, they absolutely can win.
Mm-hmm.
There's so many questions with all these teams. And this is recency bias. Was this like this last year? Like, South Carolina was undefeated last year. Like, when's the last time we're sitting there going like, maybe the bubble year, 2021, but otherwise it's like there's so many like major question marks with the top 8 teams.
Yeah, I feel like we haven't been in this place in a while. Like I feel like this time last year, like you knew who the number 1 seeds were pretty much. And I don't think we've been in a place where there's been this many question marks in a while.
No, winner take all for the Big Ten regular season championship tomorrow at Pauley. Michigan State, Minnesota is also tomorrow. Gophers 20-9. Net is in the mid 30s. Still winless against quad 1. 18 of their 20 wins, quad 3, quad 4. How safe should they be if they lose here? Do they need to like win one in Indy? Are they safe if they lose tomorrow and go 1 and done in Indy? Like what are we talking about the Gophers here?
I think they're probably safe. I don't know. I've probably said it 18 times, but like the bubble is just so weak that they're fine.
This sounds meaner than I intend it to be. I feel like Minnesota shouldn't be rewarded for 15 quad 4 wins and 3 more quad 3 wins, and they're winless against quad 1. I understand why they are, but
it's a case where empty,
very empty.
I would rather see maybe not Mason after the St. Joe's loss, but like had Mason been in there with like
Give me like a Princeton.
Yeah, like a Princeton, someone that hasn't had 9 opportunities to get a quad 1 win and failed all of them. Someone that, maybe they failed their 3 opportunities but took care of business against the rest of the teams or whatever.
Alas, money. Not how the world works.
Yeah.
So that's Saturday. Obviously, all the big action is Sunday. ACC. If you'd have told me a week ago that we'd have a tie atop the ACC, wouldn't have believed you. Now, so they're tied, so they can be co-champs, and I don't actually know
they
this.
can? I thought that NC's, well, maybe it's just for the number 1 seed.
They have the same record.
Okay, yeah.
They'd be co-champs, but NC State would be the 1 seed because they have the tiebreaker. Still, the fact that it's even a question mark is a surprise. Wolfpack are at SMU. I assume they will beat the Mustangs on Sunday. Notre Dame takes on Louisville at noon, ESPN. Louisville's playing well. They hung around for a half at home last month against Notre Dame. Gave up 50 in the second half. I just don't think they can slow down Notre Dame enough.
No.
And they don't have quite the firepower to keep up.
Yeah, I would agree with that. And as much as I thought that Notre Dame would respond last night, I would hope that they will respond this weekend after losing 2 straight. If they didn't, I would be very concerned about the Irish.
I'm just looking at the first game where Louisville made 7 threes and they forced 23 turnovers, and that's their MO. And Cochran played well. And Jada Curry struggled. They need like all of that to happen, and they still lost comfortably. I just don't see the 240th best scoring defense in the country stopping Notre Dame at home enough, especially after what happened Thursday. No. But now there's a lot of intrigue, more intrigue than I had before last night, going into Florida State hosting Duke, where you have this unstoppable force in the Florida State offense meeting an immovable object in the Duke defense. That should be a fun one.
Yeah, that's quite the way to close out the ACC regular season.
I don't know what's at stake. There's a big difference between some of these single buys and double buys. I don't know what this does for the ACC standings. So obviously the top 2, there is a 1, 2, 3. There's a 4-way tie for third. Duke and Louisville, Duke and Florida State are 2 of them. UNC and Louisville are the other 2. So it'll sort itself out. So yeah, winner gets a double buy in Duke, Florida State. Spicy. Yeah. Louisville trying to go for a double bye against Notre Dame. Spicy. I don't know who Notre Dame, or I don't know who North Carolina plays. They played full schedule. Virginia. Deep South Soldiers rivalry.
Yeah.
Should win. Should take care of business. So the ACC is all of a sudden a question mark.
Yeah.
SEC. Let's talk coin flip. We spend tens of millions of dollars to move all these conferences around, and it's going to come down to Greg Sankey on television from his office in Birmingham, flipping a coin, putting it on his hand, and let's roll.
Yeah, like someone should have come up with a better plan than this, but it's kind of funny.
You would have thought that they'd go with the 8th tiebreaker is like, all right, so they're going to be 15-1, assuming South Carolina beats Kentucky. And Texas beats, I don't have it written down, so they can't be playing anyone good. Florida.
Yeah, they should have.
Fine team, not a very good team. So they'll both be 15-1. The losses are to each other. Like after that, you got to go, like eventually their schedules are different. It's not a true round robin in the SEC. Like strength of schedule against teams 3 through whatever.
Right.
That's not how it is. Big, it matters for me. So I'm calling the 1 seed line next week in Greenville. So I will either talk to Vic Schaefer or I will talk to Dawn Staley, probably 3 times. I know who I want to talk to. I'm going to keep that personal. But it does matter for me on Sunday at 4:00. If South Carolina can beat Kentucky, if you'd asked me a week ago, even after the beatdown against UConn, I'd be like, yeah, South Carolina's going to win.
Yeah.
I think they're still going to win. It's at home.
Yeah.
No, watch out for
looks good.
Wildcats.
Yeah. I will say I was impressed with what South Carolina got from Fagan and Kitts last night. They got a lot of them against.
They got triple-double from Kitts. Yeah, and Fagan's been good, and full Wiley. I don't think she did a whole lot last night, but really, really good the previous 2 games. They struggled a bit with Ole Miss, which that's Ole Miss's MO. They're trying to make it ugly. They've rebounded well from the loss to UConn. Not too dissimilar, to how they rebounded well to the UCLA loss, which that could bode well potentially.
Yeah, into March for sure.
How does Kentucky win? Like if Amar goes off, sure. They don't get a lot of offensive rebounds. They did last night, meaning they're like, if they repeat last night, they can absolutely win. If they revert kind of back to the mean where they're one and done a lot, then you're putting a lot of pressure on yourself to make shots. And South Carolina's deep, different deep than Tennessee, more talented deep.
Yeah.
I don't see it, but I see it more than I did.
Agreed.
A week ago.
Yeah, I still don't see it, but I do think it is at least a possibility. I think, yeah, you got to get something from your bench. I thought last night Tiana Key and Claire Strack were real good. If you can get some of that. We've seen South Carolina struggle in the postseason. So can you get those two going? Maybe that's the difference maker, but I don't know. I still don't really see it, but it's a better path than I thought it would have been a week ago.
If Kitts and Fagan play like they did last night, I don't give Kentucky much of a chance.
Yeah.
If they play kind of like they did against Texas and UConn, then absolutely, because Strack and now Clara Silva was basically a non-factor for 28 games, and then she was great on Sunday against LSU. She was really good last night, and that's just it's a body and a big body that can get rebounds. That's an added dimension for Kentucky. So if South Carolina and Texas both win, they will do a coin flip. I think they said at halftime of the LSU Ole Miss game. Let me double check that. Our friend Jack Church posted it. Covers the SEC on her hoop stats. Follow her hoop stats on Twitter, on X, and Blue Sky. Yes. The coin will have a South Carolina logo on one side, Texas logo on the other. Commissioner Sankey will toss it in the air, catch it, and flip it on the back of his hand. Whoever comes up as the 1 seed. Halftime of Ole Miss at LSU. SEC Network, 4 o'clock. Coin flip will be around 5 o'clock.
They put more thought into the coin flip than they did how they were decide who the number 1 seed of this tournament is.
Apparently. LSU Ole Miss. If good LSU shows up, I don't think it's a contest. If any other LSU shows up, it could be a low-scoring, ugly affair. That's the great question. I feel like it's not a great question if you're an LSU fan to have on February 28th.
Yeah, at some point, I think you're got to get real worried about this team's habit of just like not playing the first half of the game.
Yes. Big 12. Also, a winner gets the 1 seed. 6:30, so it caps off your Sunday. Baylor hosting TCU. Frogs won 80-75 in Fort Worth last month. Wasn't quite that close at the end. Baylor had a couple of late shots that turned like a double-digit game into a 5-point game. I think it all depends on how shorthanded is Baylor. I've tried to look. I haven't seen anything on Dariana Littlepage-Buggs and Bella Fauntleroy, who were both hurt. Buggs didn't play on Monday. Fauntleroy left early. Didn't matter. They won anyways. But, like, if those two don't play, this is a deep Baylor team.
It's not that deep.
Right. It's a tall task.
Yeah. I hope they're healthy, one, for Baylor's sake, and then two, like, this game, obviously that's going to take a lot out of this game if those two aren't on the court. It's not going to have the energy that it would have if they were playing. I feel like, though, like, Baylor is just a team that, like, no one's really talking about that is, could potentially win the Big 12 1 seed on Monday, could potentially host, and it's just like not a team on anyone's radar, and they're not someone I would want to see as my 4 or 5 seed.
They have won 9 straight. They have 5 players in double figures. A sixth, and Fauntleroy averages 9.5. So they basically have 6 players in double figures. They're top 10 nationally in rebounding. They distribute the basketball as well as anyone. They don't turn it over a bunch. They play defense. They don't have that elite Juju, Hidalgo, Beckers, Betts, like level of star, which probably lowers their ceiling. But this is a really good team. 2-point loss at Oregon. That's aged well. Neutral site loss to Indiana in November. Fine. Bad loss to Oklahoma State. Got blown out. But otherwise, like, hung around at the UCLA. Tough loss at TCU. That's it.
Yeah. Yeah, I think this team is better than people are giving them credit for, and they're experienced too. Like these are a lot of these players have been there 3, 4, 5 years. Like they're an experienced group, and I think that just bodes well in March. They've played together in the tournament. They know what's coming.
Yeah, and if you're going back to that first TCU game, they got 31 points from 4 starters. So they need more of that, more production from not Sarah Andrews.
Mhm.
Like, I don't think Andrews can do much more than 21 points. Need
Right.
Vonleh to have more than 9 points, 2 rebounds against Sedona Prince. She has struggled against elite bigs this year.
Right.
She was really, really good on Monday. Noe Oakley for K-State. I think, assuming Fauntleroy and Little Page Bugs don't play, I just try to look for some sort of update. I'm not seeing anything, but Fauntleroy was in a sling on Monday, and Little Page Bugs just hasn't been seen in 2 weeks. I have to go TCU.
Yeah, yeah. I do think this is a team that come the actual tournament, if they're healthy and they get a draw where they don't have to play an elite big, can make a really big run.
Absolutely. Iowa State, K-State's also on Sunday. We're not going to see Oakley. We talked about that. Iowa State is 20-10.
I think they're
Are they?
I think
Yes.
they're comfortable, but unfortunately, which is mean. But just like
Now,
I feel like these teams should have to win something to get in the field.
What's comfortable? Like, bye? Or are they in the first? Like, who? Spoiler, do we have a last 4 in?
I don't have it right now. I need to look at it. I think Iowa State is probably either like at the top of that last 4 in or in the bye round. Like I think they're more comfortable than a Washington than a Virginia Tech than even like a whatever second Ivy team was gonna get in or whatever in that group.
There. Gotcha. Also Sunday, Maryland, Ohio State. Someone's going to go into the Big Ten tournament on a 3-game win streak after a couple of hiccups. Maryland's not going to host Ohio State. That'd be a big lift to their hosting chances. No, if it's a close loss at College Park, is that okay?
I think they're leaving themselves vulnerable to what everyone else does. I think
so like if Baylor wins and Ohio State loses.
Yeah. Okay. Or Alabama wins and Ohio State loses. Like I think that could put them in trouble, but if Alabama and Baylor don't win, then like they're probably fine as long as it's close.
Well, there it is, folks. ACC could have co-champs. Saturday, Big Ten, winner gets the 1 seed. SEC is going to be a freaking coin flip.
Mm-hmm.
Winner takes the Big 12. Am I missing anything?
I don't think so.
UConn won the Big East.
Yeah,
shocking.
Shocker.
they left the trophy on the floor. They forgot. They literally like. Did you catch that? Where they almost forgot to bring it on the floor.
Yeah.
Speaking of UConn, we're a college basketball podcast. The GOAT retired. What you're the UConn alumnus here. You were born in 93, so you were
94, yeah.
7, 8, 9 years old when Diana Taurasi got to campus. So basically, your entire basketball viewing life, she's been a part of it. Same with me. I was born in 92. It's weird to think that she is no longer going to be a part of our basketball watching lives. She's just been a mainstay for 2 decades.
Yeah, I feel like Diana's like the first player that I like remember growing up watching, and obviously have been watching her since early thousands when she was playing at UConn, and then through now, and it is crazy that like she's just no longer going to be on your TV to watch her play basketball, and obviously everything she's accomplished, the Olympics, the college championships, WNBA championships ever. Like she is my GOAT. I'm guessing she is probably your GOAT too.
Yes.
It's like congrats to her on the retirement, but it's wild to think like she's just not playing anymore. Kind of felt like she was just going to play forever.
Yes, and I mean she probably
could if she wanted to. Yeah.
She scored 42 last year, and she put up 25 in a playoff game. Like she absolutely still could. It's just a matter of you got to go through the prep and all that entails. If I don't want this to get off tracks. If you don't know what she did, like people just assume, UConn's won 11 national championships. Like they get all the best players. Yes, Diana Taurasi was on the greatest women's college basketball team of all time. 01, 02. 97, 98 Tennessee, fine if that's yours. 01, 02 UConn. Had 3 Hall of Famers and 1, 2, 4, and 6 picks in the draft. And the best player on the team was none of them. It was Diana. What she did in 03 and 04 is what Caitlin Clark did last year, and 2 years ago, except she got the rings to show for it.
Yeah.
And like, if you people go to the sports reference page and pull up 0203 UConn and see, oh, well, she played with 4 other WNBA players. Respectfully, if you go to the W at any way, like you're really, really good at basketball, freshman Barbara Turner, freshman Ann Strother, sophomore Ashley Battle, upperclassman Jessica Moore, who didn't play her first 2 years. And she dragged that team to a national title. Greatest thing I've ever seen.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's, and there's a lot more talented players than Taurasi. It's like, it's the aura, right?
Yeah.
Like she's what, 9th on UConn's scoring list. Sure, she's the all-time WNBA scoring leader. Someone's going to break that.
Mm-hmm.
She's the all-time 3-point leader. Someone's going to break that. She played 22 years or whatever it is.
Yeah.
There's a lot more talented players, but just we have Diana and you don't.
Yeah.
The quote is just that defines her, right?
Right. Yeah, she's just the like always the most competitive person on the floor, and just her attitude and the way she always, since she arrived at UConn, has carried herself is, yeah, it's just what makes her different.
It's a good week for the door. It's a good week for the ref, who can walk safely in the lobby.
Yes.
Is it Kelsey Plum now that needs to take the mantle? Like, I don't know who else would be just the go-to. Just I'll keep it clean and just say the nasty talker. Yes. So congrats to Diana Taurasi on a great career. She's your go. Actually, the first time I think I ever like knew you existed, I saw, had to be like Daniel Connolly or someone, like retweet you at Halloween
in a goat costume with
a Taurasi. Yes. I'm like, oh, who's this Megan Gauer person? I like her. I like her attitude. Yes. So yes, Megan, bracketology tomorrow ish.
Yeah, tomorrow definitely at some point.
How often are we updating it now? I guess after Sunday, like you don't really have to update it.
Yeah, I'll update it probably again on, I think everyone plays Sunday, so Monday, or whenever kind of like this weekend's stretch of before all the tournaments start next weekend, basically, and then as close to daily as possible for the rest of it. So it will be very frequent.
Well, we will have maybe a shorter show next week, because when we talk, not a whole lot will have happened, and I'll be in a hotel room in Greenville. But until then, enjoy the insanity of the weekend, everyone.